back to the Twisted Builds podcast. It's been a minute. We just got through some technical difficulties with Zoom.
Like always, man.
But we are here. So, oh my word. How's it been? I mean, I've been seeing the motor in the back with the drop bear hanging off the side of it. How's that? Have you been able to get back to that? Yeah, that guy.
Oh, am I frozen? I'm trying to move out of the way.
You're good. You're good.
Okay. Well, I had it wheeled outside. And then a buddy came over with a 6.0 and his 2500 that I just built his engine. He ordered all of his parts from eBay, and the lifters that we put in his truck were made of some sort of metal colored Play-Doh because they were just demolished with less than 100 miles on them. So that took priority, and I had the engine wheeled outside, and then he came over, so I wheeled it right back inside.
Gotcha.
I had to tear the heads off his truck and replace the lifters with some milling lifters. But that's an odd thing. I've never seen that before. Those eBay ones, no brand, less than 100 miles on them, and they were just smushed sides, scarred everywhere.
Oh, geez.
And it made me feel bad because I'm the one who kind of built it for him, but I'm not the one who bought the parts for it.
Yeah.
So that was on him to do all that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it happens.
So
I've never ran the eBay ones before, so I've always ran just junkyard ones, so
yeah, I've never had a problem with the stock ones at all. And the ones that I'll have like a push rod smush on the end, I'll just toss that lifter and throw another stock one from my pile. Yeah. So I've never really had issues with the stock ones on themselves. It's always something else that have caused those to go bad.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I need to get a set of lifters for the 6.2 that I'm putting in the S10 at some point, but it's been a bunch of suspension work and stuff before that, before I even get to that point yet. Although I'll probably be getting the cam and everything for it soon with all the EPA garbage that's going on currently. Make sure I can actually get my hands on that stuff.
Oh, don't you love that? Like even like something as stupid as long tube headers are getting hard to find because stuff. It's absolutely ridiculous, but I'm not too concerned about it because considering I have the stuff to fabricate my own stuff here.
Yeah,
it comes to like exhaust.
Yeah, and I'm in the same boat. Like I can fab all my own exhaust stuff, but like camshafts and just other ends that you can't really fabricate. Those are gonna be the ticket items to try to get your hands on. But it's absolutely crazy how many tuning shops and stuff are getting whacked right now for all this garbage coming through. So complete overreach. But
isn't there's some kind of petition? I think was it the RPM?
Yep, the RPM Act. There's a petition that you can go sign online. SEMA I think is the one that is kind of the one behind it. So, but. But yeah, you can get them to pretty much raise awareness to your local congressional members and hopefully get this pushed through because it's kind of been sitting stale for months now, or probably closer to a year now, I'm thinking. So the RPM Act going through. So, but
it irritates me because if you think about it, like when it comes to emissions, it's really not the hot rodders that are polluting as much as the daily drivers that neglect maintenance. Like the person that builds a high horsepower hot rod, well, he's not daily driving it. She's not daily driving it. It's getting taken out once a weekend at the most, or like once every 2-3 months for a car show. They're not exactly polluting like the everyday normal vehicles out there that haven't had spark plugs done in 100,000 miles, or somebody cut the cats off their Honda to make it sound like a weed eater.
Yep. Yes, agreed. And it's one of those things where it's like, even if you just completely ignore all that, we tune our cars for efficiency. The engines make the most power when they're the most efficient. And when they're the most efficient, they're going to have very little to zero, emission output. So it's going to be a lot cleaner for most vehicles. Not now, diesel is completely different, but the gas engine side of things, we tune for efficiency. We don't want those engines running inefficient, and when you tune for efficiency like that, your emissions is going to be a lot lower than normal.
You can even tune a stock vehicle for better gas mileage than what came from the factory. Because when it comes to like the VE tables and it comes to the mass airflow graphs, like they throw just copy and paste one in there that's good in the high mountains of Colorado, as good as the sea level on Florida. It's not going to be tuned for where you drive it. So like there's even fuel economy gains and emissions gains from just tuning a stock vehicle. So it's annoying. It really is, because the people that are writing the legislation and all that crap, of course, they're not the ones that ever do any damn research. They have a panel of experts, quote unquote, to
that kind of tell them. Yep. Yeah, they don't, and they don't have a clue of what, or understanding what's actually going on. So it's driving me insane. At least it's just crazy. I mean, it's absolutely just put your head up your ass and try to legislate like that. It's insane.
Yeah.
But yeah. No, it was just I'm having to get stuff for the S10 soon, because I'm just, in case of all this crap going through, I want to make sure I still have availability to get which I have most everything I need for the engine. It's just going to be like cam and stuff that I foresee that's probably going to starting to get hard to get your hands on crap like that. So
yeah, the good thing with camshafts is you could take a stock camshaft. I mean, you could make a bigger camshaft from a stock camshaft by just grinding down the base lobe and adjusting the valve train and other parts. So even if they ban all aftermarket camshafts, we still have a way to go towards something better than a stock if we want more air in and out of the engine.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just been a complete overreach.
Or we could just go, was it Cohenseg's way?
Free valve.
And just free valve it, and then yeah.
Oh my.
There was a Miata that I think made the rounds last week or something. I've been hearing a lot about.
Yes, that guy.
The video. I've just been hearing about it.
Yeah, that guy actually got that Miata. Like, I haven't seen, if a new video's come out this past week, I haven't seen it. But he had Mazda Miata. He got, I think I watched a video back in January or February where he got it was like a red Miata with a factory engine. And he machined and designed a free valve setup that works with compressed air and air solenoids to open and close the valves. Mm-hmm. And it works pretty good. He drove it around. He had video of it driving around and everything. It's very noisy, but it does work. So, and that, I'm sure that technology will probably progress as all this stuff starts going down. Putting all this technology back in the power of the, hot rodders.
Yeah, I mean, necessity is the mother of all invention. So when it comes to constraints, I mean, if you look like the firearm community with a lot of the constraints that they're actually producing, arguably other brands than others, better firearms. How do I word this? Not because that there are rules, but there's more research going on into firearm theory, I guess, to allow them to start building some better firearms. So like it's you put shackles on something, you put shackles on someone, they're gonna use their feet to start picking up stuff. So exactly. I mean, necessity is the mother of all invention. So who knows? We might have some better tech coming out here, and then,
which I mean that was the whole thing with from the 70s and 80s to now. Everyone thought that EFI, when that came through, was going to be the end all, and I look at where it's progressed to sport. I mean, they have gotten engines more efficient because of all this crap coming through from the federal government, and all this more efficiency makes more power, which it just floors me when they don't understand that hey, it's not the hot rodders causing all the pollution, but They're gonna target us anyway. Oh my! I know you haven't. I know you haven't been in social media, or at least you haven't been in some of the spaces I hang out in
Not for a
anymore.
few months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you been seeing all the tuner shops that have been getting raided into and everything like that?
No, but I have been seeing a lot of the firearm community shops getting raided for
Yeah.
stupid stuff,
It's
but
it's
and
it's
not exactly even illegal stuff. It's just all around any sort of hobby you have now, from this to that. It's just there's a crackdown on it right now.
yeah.
They don't want people to be happy with their hobbies, and it pisses me off. But
Exactly. Yeah, it was just it's
I
one of
haven't
those.
I haven't seen many of the shops. I know for a few years now they've been cracking down on just the decent shops.
Sorry, you were breaking up. What'd you say?
I said I know for a few years now they've been cracking down on like diesel shops, but I haven't heard
Yes.
anything recently on like tuner shops or
Yep, they
anything like
started
that.
going after tuner shops. Probably early or late February, early March. There's 6 that I know of that they raided. It's not a full on like armed raid of the shop or anything. It's more of a very very professional visit from the EPA to read off factory OBD2 cars to to see if there's any kind of aftermarket tunes or anything in them, and talk to the owners. That's also why like Stainless Works stopped selling like off-road use only stuff because they couldn't prove that the end user was going to use it for off-road use only, which is insanity. I mean,
Well, it's not on them to have that
exactly.
proof.
Exactly, it's not. I mean, it's on the end user to use it in a legal manner, and it's just absolutely. Whenever the EPA switched their definition to where, or a definition of the law where they weren't enforcing like the vehicles that had a VIN plate that were emission certified that got taken off the road and were only off road use only. They weren't forcing the emission standards on them to where, oh yeah, if we don't care if it had a VIN number at one point in time, it's got to comply with all the emissions equipment that was on that vehicle at point of sale, which is crazy.
Oh, well, then you're just going to see a whole bunch of really old stuff skyrocket in
It's
price, and you're
it's
just going to see a whole bunch of old stuff make a second round of being cool.
Why have you looked at the price of carburetors recently?
No, should I? Because I have a few here in the shop that I could probably get a rebuild kit and just hold on to for the price of gold to go up. Apparently,
I would. I heard about the price of carburetors are starting to go sky high, and I've got a few Hollies sitting in my basement. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna hoard those at a little bit more of a safer spot just in case, because the
yeah.
crap's getting insane.
You,
So,
you know, so I go to a machinist school, and
mhm.
it's a 2-year program, and I've been learning a whole hell of a lot. Well, before I even started going to that school, my dad, he races a whole bunch of like yard carts and lawnmowers and stuff here in Oklahoma. I know that makes me sound redneck, but I mean, we can make a lawnmower go pretty damn fast. And what is it, like ESPN like 35 or something used to film the lawnmower races.
Yep.
But even like back a few years ago, I had the thought in my head of making my own carburetor for some of those 200cc, 212cc small engines. And it's really not that hard for that smaller stuff. You just got to get a lot of Bernoulli's principle down and get
Yep.
your math right when it comes to that. So it's a good thing that I'm going through a lot of this schooling right now, because at the end of the day, if I make my own carburetor, regardless of how inefficient it is, if it gets an engine to run and I can bypass them and give the government a middle finger, I will.
Yep. You just reminded me. I'm gonna throw the whole conversation in a curveball. That is why I got into Speeduino,
Mhm.
because of the fact that I have friend like lawnmower racing's a thing in the area I'm in.
Mhm.
And I've been into small engines. Like I started out with small like lawnmower engines, making them faster, or whatever. I would weld up and regrind my own cams and everything like that for single cylinder stuff. And you probably remember my small engine dyno.
Yeah.
that I still need to get to at some point.
I ended up watching your video before I even know who you were. And after we got in contact with each other and was talking about the Speeduino stuff, I thought back, I was like, you know what? I watched that guy years ago. Didn't even know it was you.
That whole project is what started me on Speeduino, because I wanted to fuel, or I still will at some point, fuel inject a little single cylinder engine just for the hell of it. That's because I was working on making my own. I still have a good chunk of the code of making my own Uno based fuel injection controller for a single cylinder engine, and it got to the point where like I'm just completely reinventing the wheel here. Why not just jump on the Speeduino board, or the Speeduino train, and just roll with it? And that's pretty much what I did. So again, completely off subject what we were talking about, but
when it comes to the tech progressing and until the EPA comes and knocks down every single one of those doors of the people that help build that hardware or that software,
it's completely open source. There's never going to be able to stop it. It's just not going to be a thing.
Yeah, can't stop the signal, huh?
Exactly. But yeah, it's just been crazy. But so you were working on a 6-liter. Have you gotten any other projects done, or was that the last of it?
Well, my little brother bought a one of those job site boxes. Somebody built this office for some oil rig on a single wide trailer, and my little brother bought it. Beautiful exterior. The interior was just garbage because a whole bunch of people in the oil field built it, and they're obviously not contractors. But I've been going through it, and I've been rebuilding that while I've been on spring break this week, remodeling and doing floors and roofs and ceilings and walls and wiring, all sorts of crap. Staying busy, kind of not just engines, but other kind of crap to keep my hands busy.
I hear you there. I've been working on that. Yes, go on.
I did get my lathe running. I hooked up the VFD, and it is awesome. Let me see if I have the room here to stretch the camera out, and I'm going to turn the VFD on. I want to show you that.
Gonna show off his big lathe. Nice.
Can you see that?
Yeah, that's the power controller, isn't that?
Yep. I couldn't see the laptop, but I don't feel like going and turning the breaker on real quick.
No, that's fine.
But that thing's awesome. The amount of programming you can do to that to convert single phase to 3-phase and ramp up times, decel times, on-off switch, jog forward, jog reverse. It is that thing's impressive coming from Taiwan or China. It really is. Awesome. I'm impressed for that money. I don't think I ever could have got a deal like that without paying triple for like a rotary phase converter or quadruple for a rotary phase converter.
That's awesome.
That's but I got it wired up, and the lathe is running.
Have you machined any parts with the lathe?
One while it's here. And it didn't turn out that well because I don't have a quick change tool post on it. It's just the old style.
Yep.
And the center height, or the height for the cutting edge of the tool, needs to be on the center height of the part. Mm-hmm. And it is nowhere near it, even with spacing up the bottom. So I'm going to make myself some old, I think they call it like a Nelson patent style, really old quick change tool post. I'm going to end up machining one of those up so I can make my own and set the center height of the tool right and get all that stuff. But the one part I made, it was God, I want to say like an 1/8 inch below center and just mushing up everything, not making a chip. I only had a little piece of aluminum in it just to test out the VFD.
That's crazy. Now, I've been watching machining videos, so I've just, because of my little guys compared to what you've got there. But so you're saying you're gonna make your own quick change posts, like your own quick change tooling.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So look it up. I think the just general term of it, I don't believe there's a patent on it, but the name that it's called is the Nelson patent style quick change tool post. And I don't know if you can just Google it on your phone real quick. It's like a center post, and you have like a donut that sits around the post that you tighten down with one set screw. And with the groove cut in the donut, you can stick a piece of high-speed steel in it and then just loosen it up and down the center rod. And
Okay.
tool height where you need to be. Super, super simple to make one.
I was writing a note down of it so that way I had it. So I'm gonna definitely look that stuff up because I want it. My little lathe is just you've seen the little benchtop lathes. It's got that little center post deal with you could rotate it for 4 different tools and that's about it. I would like to do what?
Yeah, it's the same one that's on mine. The little 4 square, not the turret, but the little 4 square style.
Exactly. And I want to do something quick change just because of changing tooling out and back and forth quickly to do different machining operations with it.
Yeah, it really comes in handy from like facing to chamfer tools to cut off tools and to just really just unchange it, stick it on, and have the height already preset and just immediately machine without having to get your face to the spinning part, set the line on it. It's worth it, even if you got to buy one. Even if I don't make this one. I think I'm going to use like a BXA because there's AXA, BXA, and CXA quick change tool post styles.
Okay.
For like the little locking dovetail ones.
Yep.
I think I'm going to go with like a BXA, and then you can get them for like under $300 and then make your own tool holders.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna have to look into that because I've been looking into the machining stuff little by little. I actually picked up some 1-inch cold steel round stock for the lathe just to mess with and pretty much make suspension spacers out of it for the S10 build. So I picked up a couple feet of it. Yeah.
Now that I have the lathe here, I don't know if you remember me telling you, damn near 6 months ago, I was making those LS in fuel rail adapters for the AN fitting. So I'm going to be putting out hundreds of those.
Yes.
And a big old bag of them. I'm probably going to test them on my truck. And the only reason I say that is because 2 days ago, I had that little rubber fuel line leak on the top of my intake for that crossover.
Okay.
I have a new body style intake manifold on just the 6.0, but I use the old, just the normal Gen 3 plastic fuel rails on it. Yep. And I make my own crossover over the top. So I think I'm going to, those little parts on machine, I think I'm going to use those on my truck and crossover in the front.
Okay.
And then return out the back of the second rail, something like that.
There we
go. I'll be sending you a big bag of those.
I'll be testing them.
I had to change out that fuel line. So I was like, you know what? I got to get this going before I have a fire or something. I keep a fire extinguisher in my passenger seat just because it's a shit box anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll definitely be testing them on the S10 because that's kind of my plan. I would love to, and that's something else. I'm almost thinking of doing again, I come from a blow-through background, so I come from a Holley blow-through background, and I'm thinking about doing something very similar to what I did with that, except EFI based, obviously, which is going to be, would you be able to block off all of the factory feed ports, just block everything off there? And then have 2 ANs at how you have the AN adapters for I think it was for the back of the tubes, right? Or the front of the tubes.
Mm-hmm. Are you talking about on carburetor or
no, on the LS stuff, on the LS.
That again, I was trying to picture some other stuff that was not.
Yes, you got a rail too. So
yeah, I got a few of them.
All right. So your adapter goes in right here, correct?
Yes. So that is the factory end
cap. Yep.
And I'm taking off the caps, and you can kind of.
Yep.
You can see through here. Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to make these little the pucks that are inside there. They have an O-ring or 2 O-rings. I can't remember. I haven't taken one out in a while. I got a whole bucket of them, but
okay.
I'm basically going to be making my own with the thread for AN fittings, and you can just screw the AN fitting in there. The biggest issue I've come across when it comes to those is finding a new cap for the end of it.
Okay.
Because that little crip cap.
Yeah.
So I found some just the cheap little freeze plugs, and you make the adapter that goes in the end, drill a hole in the freeze plug for your fitting to go through, and you still got the crimp on the backside. But the issue is they're way too thick, the steel freeze plugs. Gotcha. So I'm probably just going to get some like aluminum tubing because I think the stock ones are aluminum, and make
Yeah.
my own kind of die and
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 make them crimp.
yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. My question was are you plugging the crossover tube ports? Then
Uh,
I can't remember.
I will be, yes. It's
Okay.
not right now on my truck, but it will be, yes.
Okay.
And then that way, when it comes to the height of the intake, it won't really
It
matter.
won't matter.
No,
That's
like I
that's
said, I have the plastic ones on the new body style, which had the steel fuel rails,
mm-hmm.
and I had to space them up because the height for where you screw in the steel ones is way lower than where you screw in the plastic ones. So I had to space it up and use longer bolts, but it fits fine.
Gotcha.
And then the crossover from going from bank to bank will either be in the front or you can wide out in the rear and block the fronts completely.
And that's where I was going with. So the AN lines coming off of there, what I used to do is run, or even like on the S10, I'll be running a fuel regulator, probably I would say somewhere underneath the engine compartment, obviously. Have both lines like you would for a dual float bowl Holly going to the regulator. So you have a feed line from the fuel pump into the regulator, then you just feed both rails off of the regulator, and then you have your return off of it going back to the tank.
What would be a little bit better is actually running straight from the tank to the rails, and then straight from the rails to a regulator.
That it's literally you and I are talking literally the same thing.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So yeah, the rails get like you're not regulating the fuel pressure to the rails. You're regulating the pressure from the rails to the tank.
Yes.
So on the return side.
Yeah. That's the best way to run them, right?
Yes.
There.
Yep. And that's yeah. You and I are talking the same thing. It's just just the way I'm visualizing it's probably a little different. But yeah, it's literally the same thing. We're regulating the fuel pressure on the return going back to the tank. But that's the plan. That's what I used to do in like the Holley carburetor stuff, and I would love to do the same thing with that, just because the amount of fuel flow you can get through a setup like that, you're not restricted to that that factory crossover, or where it necks down into that crossover for the feed.
And if you take off the crossover, especially. And you take off the regulator, let's say on like a Gen 3 LS, that crossover hole to feed bank 2 is
tiny.
It's tiny.
Yes, it's very small.
Let me see if I can line this up. But that is a massive hole.
Exactly.
Like, don't have any problems. That's, I want to say, I mean, that's just shy of an inch, if not an inch, diameter in there. So that's even better than some like the cheap eBay.
Exactly.
Rails. So the volume is there massively.
And that's my plan. Is just I use your plugs with that so I can get the volume, because I'm gonna be running E85 with that truck.
Yeah. You're gonna need the volume.
Exactly, and it won't be a problem. So that's the whole plan behind that. I figured we were probably on the same page of blocking off all the crossover stuff. I just couldn't remember because it's been a bit. But I'm excited.
Yeah, that plan's in the works. So one day in the mail, you're probably gonna have a bag of a few hundred of those. Thankfully, the school that I'm going to, all the scrap from all the students, because I'm besides the lady that's up there, and she's going specifically to get a job doing only CNC stuff. Mm-hmm. I'm taking the whole class because I'm retired. I don't give a crap about getting a job there, and I really don't give a crap about the certificate I get. I'm just there for the knowledge. But all the scrap that all the little 16-year-olds and 17-year-old kids produce, I'm able to take out of that scrap bin, and I'm able to make whatever I want or prototype off of that scrap stuff, because it's already going to get sold as scrap.
Yeah.
So make some chips and make it smaller scrap, and at least I get a learning experience out of it. So thankfully the instructor there is just letting me play around with all sorts of stuff so I can come up with this concoction.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. I'm jealous of your access to scrap, because right around here it's not. I was shocked to find like the inch cold roll steel. I was like, holy crap! Oh yeah, yeah.
We have a shop here. I think it's a specialty metals supply. It's over here. Oh man, I can't think of the cross streets, but I can drive right to it.
Mm-hmm.
And like they do a lot of bigger stuff, but for like their medium orders, well, they'll have cutoffs of a few feet here and there. They sell the cutoffs at scrap price. So I'm able to just pick all sorts of stuff. But the downside to that is it's not really labeled when they cut off. So
Yeah,
unless
so you don't know what
yeah,
grade of metal you're getting.
yeah, well, most of them are kind of standardized with the color of the ends,
Mm-hmm.
but who's to say they didn't cut off both ends so you don't have the actual color to work on? But a lot of
Yeah.
those is colored like pink and blue and white and red.
Okay.
So even in like a machine shop, you have cans of spray paints or some bingo daubers that are colored. So when you cut off the end of a long stick, you actually redab it or repaint it so the next person knows what type of material that is.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't even know that was a thing. All right, like we have a scrap a metal recycler, I guess, and that's where I got that stuff from. So I got it for scrap price, but it's like I've been specifically looking for metal or brass or whatever I can get my hands on for like actual metal solid blocks just to play in the mill. I can't find it to save my life, so at least not around here.
So one of these might show up with that bag of parts.
Metal working shop from scrap.
Yep, there's a author here.
David.
So it's like
Okay.
it's like a 7-book condensed into one. God, I'm out of breath from running to my truck.
It's all good.
But when it comes to like scarcity of finding metals, the very first book in here of this little 7-book collection.
How to build a foundry.
This book goes step by step. I mean, it's a thick book. Step by step on how to build your own foundry, cast your own parts out of some scrap stuff that you find to make bigger chunks, how to make your own lathe from scratch, how to make your own mill from scratch. And it's not going to be something super precise, but when it comes to making parts for prototype, or just messing around, or even like a functional part that doesn't need to be down to the thousandth of an inch in tolerance.
Yeah.
You can find some of the scrap stuff, make a foundry out of some plaster and cast your own bigger pieces to work with.
Okay.
And that actually rolls me into, I have a whole bunch of transmission cases. My shop is a dang mess, but cases and a whole bunch of transmission parts. Well, guess what? They're some decent aluminum, and they're not in a shape that I want to mess with right now, but melted down, they're going to be a pretty block of aluminum that I can turn into a useful part. So that's a really good.
That
might show up in your mill as well with some of those bags of parts.
That's actually a good idea. I to be honest with you, I have a few transmissions I was probably just going to scrap. I might not do that now. I might just hold them back.
I had my buddy Jonathan. I had him post it up. That's all 4L60s. I built, I don't know, let me say 6 or 7 of them. And then I used a whole bunch of those other ones. So I probably had a dozen total. And I have cases laying around of all the scrap parts that I don't need, or spare cases or spare valve bodies. And I told my buddy Jonathan to throw them up on Facebook for free. Just get them out of my shop because it's so damn cluttered in here. I need room for actually building stuff. Nobody bid on that. Not a single message. And not even like the scrappers wanted to come grab the parts for free. And I'm like, well, in that case, take the post down. It was a few days, not one hit on free parts just because they're 4L60 parts. Nobody wants them. 4L80 parts, they're getting hard to find right now. We actually scoured Facebook earlier and couldn't find one. It's almost cheaper just to buy one already pre-manufactured. It comes with a warranty than it is to find a used one. At least around here anyway, because we looked today. It was a hard time finding it. But so I'm just going to turn all those parts into other parts.
Yeah, that's honestly a good idea. I'll definitely keep a hold of because I've got an old 200R4 and a 700R, not 200R4, sorry. I got an old TH200 and a 700R4. That the 700R4 I've already scavenged for parts out of. It's actually the original trans out of the Firebird. And the TH200 was just a one that was given to me by an old coworker. It has no reverse. And he's rebuilt it a few times and still has no reverse. So like, you know what? And I was like, I'll just take it. But I have no use for that transmission because they're pretty much glass inside. So might as well gut it and do the same thing. Cut the aluminum into little bits and pour it into something else.
It goes into details, especially like making molds, how to make your own molding sand. You just go get some fine grade sand and some clay, or you can actually go buy molding sand. And it's basically a step by step. Hold your hand and walk you through the process. It's well worth the money I paid for that, and it's not no $30 book, but it's well worth it because I have no issue spending money on stuff I can keep as reference material.
Mm-hmm. I don't blame you there.
Book. I have no need for a machinist handbook right now personally.
Mm-hmm.
They're all over the machine shop, but I wanted one for myself for reference material, so I had no problem shelling out that $140 it was for the machinery handbook.
Gotcha.
I have a wonderful library, and I just plan on keep growing that. I like thumbing through it in rainy days and picking a topic to look through.
Can't beat that at all. Yeah. That's pretty much what I've been doing right now, except it's like it's one of those things where I will pick a subject and I will go just head first into it, just flat out. I've learned everything I can. I'm going to use the S10 as an example, the reverse suspension, doing the 3-link and the Watts-link stuff. It's like that whenever I was doing that, it's like I would literally dive head first into it, figure everything out I can about it, do the best I can for figuring out what I need to do, and then go head first into designing it, and that's what I'm getting ready to do right now with the front suspension. So just
I have the same thing, but my issue is following through. So I'll go head first into something 110%, taking up every waking hour doing my research, and I'll get hands-on to the point where I'll have like a proof of concept, and then I'll stop. And I'll never pick it up again. And it sucks because I don't know. There's a little switch that once I see it proved, then there's no reason for me to continue on it. Yeah. I've been really trying to work on that a lot and try to follow through some of the dang projects I got around here.
And I will say I definitely have some of those tendencies. Mm-hmm. Small engine dyno being one of them.
Yeah. It's just you're taking your time on it. You want to make sure it's right. So
Yeah, my time on it, as it's been sitting for like 4 years now, without being touched. If it's somewhere around there. It's been crazy amount of time. It's just been sitting there. But between the Firebird and the S10 and all the other stuff.
Me and you were texting this week, and I was talking about I kind of envy you how you accomplish so much, and I kind of need someone here to keep me company. Well, I was thinking about that, and it's not really true. Like, I have no problem working on other people's stuff. I have no problem working on other people's stuff alone or with music, and I'll complete their project, not an issue. But when it comes to like myself projects, I am a procrastinator like no other.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things with me. I can be with some stuff. Again, small engine dyno. but like with like the S10, I was hoping to get it going this season. I don't think that's going to happen at this point. I think it's way too far out yet. But so my goals kind of shifted to next season. But I'm still just kind of putting my head down, trying to figure out everything. And right now, it's just figuring out that front suspension because it's going to be interesting. So I started figuring out like this literally today. I finished everything for boxing in the front frame rail. So both sides are boxed in. Everything's double passed for welded. Because a lot of that stuff I'll double pass it just to make sure if my first pass didn't have good penetration, my second pass definitely did. Mm-hmm. And that's all done. And now it's just like this afternoon was nothing but measuring. It was just a whole pile of measuring and taking notes. I figured out the lengths of the factory because I still kept all the factory control arms, so I had kind of a reference of how long they were, upper and lower, and like ball joint locations and like spindle offset from like KPI angle to like the wheel mounting surface and just all kinds of stuff. And I got that all kind of figured out and found out if I wanted to, I'm widening the front like 6 inches overall. It's like 3 inches per side. And just the way I'm doing it, I'm going to be able to mount most everything on the exterior of that frame and be completely okay. I haven't decided exactly how I'm going to do it yet, but
are you just going to are you gonna just bend your own A arms
Yes.
or?
Yep.
Okay.
I'm custom building my upper and lower control arms. It's gonna get coilovers in the front, and my current running theory right now is I'm gonna make them adjustable and like for height, like the rear is. So like the rear, if I need to lower it or raise it, I can change like the coilover mounting holes on the rear axle, so I can go down or up, and set it if I need to bump it up without turning the spring pressures up. I can just literally physically move that coilover on an adjustment hole. I'm gonna be doing the exact same thing with the front. So
I cannot wait to see that, man, because it's awesome.
I'm
That's
like,
that I'd see out at a car show or a competition and just mind boggle and daydream about how it's put together. And
it's been a lot of undertaking, but I'm giddy. I'm excited to get it done because I plan. Well, sorry, go on.
Well, where would, let's say, okay, I have my kid's four-wheeler. It's a little $400 ATV. And I want to ride it, but I'm a little bit too big, like just so tiny, too big. My kids, it's perfect size, but if it was a little bit bigger, they could still grow into it and still be perfect size for them now, and I would have no problem riding it. So I would like to kind of widen the suspension on the ATV and the rear and stuff like that. So what's some reference material or something that you've been researching to where I could kind of look into that a little bit more and at least get my toes in the water on like a ATV suspension build before I go to some vehicles?
I would say the ATV is going to be severely different than an automotive-based independent front suspension.
The front end, I can tell you, it's
still going to be double
really
wishbone,
similar, but it's the rear that's easy to figure out. But I'm talking about like camber angle stuff versus like control arm length versus like ball joint placement and stuff like that.
There's actually a video series I will send you a link to on YouTube. It was a video series I actually got back into right before we started this podcast recording. FDF Race Shop, they're actually out of Canada. They the guy that owns that place just put out I think it's like a 9 video series or whatnot. It sounds like he's not even done yet of all of like visually showing you a test, like it's a benchtop rig, and he has a wheel bearing spindle, cut all this stuff out of it and visually shows you what everything does as it changes. Okay. That is a very, very good one to reference. Now that's not going to really go along with what you're doing with a four-wheeler, but will go heavily into any kind of vehicle suspension. Okay. Yes, the suspensions are the same, but are similar. It's just pretty much applications completely different, which means setups completely different. And like you have with a four-wheeler, to make it to where you and your kids will probably be able to ride it, you're probably going to extend the control arms a little bit. And at that point, you're going to be looking at like KPI angles and just some other odds and ends to get it set up to where it's still good for four-wheeling, but it's big enough for you.
I don't really care if it's good for four-wheeling because it's a two-wheel drive. It's not four-wheel drive. Independent front end.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So it's kind of similar to some of the vehicles. It's not like a McPherson or anything, but.
There's also a chassis design book that I had a friend send me a link to. I'll also send you as well. I think it's Chassis Design by Max Hearn, I want to say it is. And that is like, I wouldn't say PhD level, but there's another book, I don't remember the name to save my life, that is PhD level for suspension design for the front end. But it's still a very good book for, going into research, and I've been diving headfirst at all that. Trying to figure it out. So there's a lot behind it. You gotta take in a lot of. It's like for instance, a camber change can change. For instance, I'm gonna go back to my S10 because that's what I've been researching. Say a caster change is going to change camber at full lock because caster turns into camber pretty much whenever you turn around. KPI angles are gonna.
What? I have my A4 ASE, so I went a little bit into that, but it's been 6 years.
Yeah,
I've really done research into it. So when it comes to the camber and caster changes the other one, and you raise this and drop that.
Yep.
I can visualize that in my mind.
And like with the getting in deeper into it, like with the S10, I'm gonna be having adjustable, control arm height mounts. So, you know how like the rear suspension on a lot of like even if like 4-link vehicles where you can change bar mounting points up and down. I plan on doing the same thing with the front of that S10. So I want to have, I'm thinking probably 3 inches, possibly 4 inches worth of adjustment on the upper and lower control arm and up and down to be able to adjust roll center height and the roll center axis. And the upper control arm will also be like, if you're looking, say this is the front of the vehicle and this is the back, the control arm for the front's going to be able to be adjusted pretty much, I don't know what plane you call this in, but pretty much towards the back of the vehicle down, so that way you can actually match up with the instant center for the rear to help with braking forces on the front. And it's a bunch of figuring out. And
your video froze, so any of those head movements I can imagine.
Sorry.
I couldn't see any of your hand movements.
Let me see if I can fix this here. Oh, technology tonight, I tell you.
Yeah, it's lovely. So I could see in my head that you were probably moving your hands around. That would have helped me visualize, but
oh, my word, it's not gonna let me do it. Hold on. There we go. Can you see me now?
Okay.
Okay.
Do some of the hand movements.
Okay. So the upper control arm, say this is the front of the vehicle and this is the back. Okay. I'm going to be able to adjust the control arm to where the rear of it goes towards the ground, which will affect not only like a KPI and caster, but it's also going to affect pretty much. It's like it's the roll center axis for the front of the vehicle towards the rear. So that way, whenever you hit the brakes, it helps mitigate some of the body roll, going forward whenever you hit the brakes and stuff like that.
It's pre-compensating a little bit. So when you go into braking, you're more your weight distribution and your center axis, I guess.
Exactly. It's not completely nose diving. You can actually get it to where it still plants the tires really hard on braking, so you can maximize your tire grip on braking. But it's not going to put the bumper into the ground either. Okay, so I'm just been doing a pile of research trying to figure out how exactly I want to set that truck up. Not to mention that, but make it adjustable in the ways I need to make it adjustable.
When it comes to setting the height for the control arms, are you going to do is it just going to be bolts and holes, or is it slotting, or?
It's going to be bolts and holes. Probably 3/4 inch adjustments per hole change. 3/4 to an inch. It's going to depend on what final measurements lay out.
It's kind of a large jump from 3/4 inch.
It is, but whenever you actually run out the for instance, you run out that imaginary line for where roll center actually is, it doesn't change that particularly much. Definitely at a 3/4 inch range. It's when you're looking at. I'm frozen again, aren't I?
Yeah, you're frozen again. I can't see any of your hand movements.
There we go. My back.
Okay, there you go.
Anyway,
well, your thing disappeared, so I can see my full beard now. But
yeah, I'm gonna have issues on my side because it just froze again.
Yeah.
So, oh dear Lord, gotta love technology.
Okay. I see you again now. One more time.
Yeah, until it freezes again. but yeah, it's been a pile of research and just figuring out how I want to set it up for roll centers and everything like that. And it's once I get it working, it's just gonna be a matter of getting it to a track and adjusting it. It's the same way I've got the rear 3-link I've got. I'm frozen again. The rear 3-link I have set up. I have it set up to where I can put the instant center of that rear axle literally a foot in front of the pinion to 10 feet in front of the truck, and high and low all throughout the range of up and down. So I could set it way above the hood to in the ground for the imaginary roll center or instant center.
Do you think so? You're kind of going above and beyond when it comes to adjustability.
Yes.
because like it's like your first time doing that and you don't really know where you're going to be at next. Like, do you think like maybe your next project isn't going to have as much because you know where to put the adjustability?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Not only that, but from what again, just the research I've been doing, you can change adjustments per track conditions, or if you're going from a really tight track to a really loose track, or I'm also not just setting it up for street and drift, but also autocross as well. I'm frozen again. But autocross as well. But yes, I would say you are correct in the fact of once I get an idea where that particular setup likes to be, the next setup won't have as much adjustability just because I won't need it. But I have no idea what this setup's going to want. Mm-hmm. So I want to have it as adjustable as possible so I can make it what I need to be and kind of roll with it. Okay. Definitely with being all custom, I just want to have the...
Definitely do send me those links, because that's something that I'll probably go head in 110% and then tear my kid's four-wheeler apart and never put it back together with, now that I know how it works.
I'll say anyone listening or watching this podcast and my frozen face again, that FDF race shop one, I would highly recommend that to anyone. That one is very, very good at breaking it down to layman's terms, yet being very, very detailed.
Let me go ahead and do that right now.
Yeah, FDF race shop.
FDS.
FDF. So Frank Delta Frank.
Okay. Race shop?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, if you bring it up on YouTube, he's got a playlist for front suspension geometry. And that's the...
Yeah, he's got a website and... Okay.
Yep.
Okay. I got it.
Sweet. And that's the one I highly recommend getting into. I'm actually going through it for a second time and jotting down a bunch of notes so I can, between that and a couple of the books I have, just start getting design figured out for that. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be making my own spindles and everything as well. I don't know if... Yeah. Ooh. So, yes. So, I'm frozen again. My plan is I don't know if you've ever seen the pre-runner trucks, where they run sheet metal fabbed spindles on those. Yep. That's kind of where I'm getting the idea from. So and some of the drift guys also do it as well. They just don't build them as beefy. Wow. I want to be able to jump this thing if I have to and not have to worry about the front spindles breaking on me. So they're gonna get built up. And the current idea is Mustang front wheel bearings, because it'll match up my bolt patterns front and rear. Probably Cobra front rotors, and do the same thing I did in the rear with the front. We're having 4 calipers in the front, 2 per wheel. Mm-hmm. It's kind of the idea right now. That may change. Like if it's too much brake force, I'll just pull a set of calipers off the front.
Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of braking right there.
Yeah, it is. I am going manual brakes, so it will. I think it'll help a little bit in that regard. But
speaking of braking, I was watching a video yesterday, and they were talking about some of like the old Penske racing back in the day, and they were talking about braking and kind of bending the rules a little bit within how they worked, because you had to race the stock part vehicles. But anything that the manufacturer made, you were able to use on the vehicle to upgrade it. Well, I think it was Penske, they went, and this was back when one of the new Porsches came out. They went and bought Porsche Brakes, went and took them to the dealership, had the dealership enter them in as their dealer's part numbers, and then resell them over the counter as OE parts so they could get bigger brakes on their stock racing. And they even added a second brake booster. One, you know how a brake booster works? It uses the vacuum to assist. Well, they did it the opposite, because they were changing brakes in the middle of the race back then. So they did it the opposite. So they actually had a vacuum switch. So when they pulled into pit, they would flip the switch and it would suck the just plink the pads off, throw new pads in,
flip and then the switch.
They were able to do brake changes in seconds as opposed to the minutes for prying off hot brake parts.
Okay.
Yeah, it was some cool technology. I love watching those old videos of how they bend the rules and the cheating and stuff going on. They always talk about like the 2 or 3 inch diameter fuel line that goes from the tank, and it's like it wraps back and forth in the car like 20 feet before it goes to the carburetor to give you an extra few gallons.
Yep.
They're really inventive.
Yes, they were. Definitely like 80s F1 stuff. I don't know if you ever got into that or not, but oh my word.
I mean, a little bit, not 80s, but some of like the early 2000s. There was some stuff that I've researched from there.
Just absolute crazy stuff they were doing just to bend the rules. Where they same kind of thing with the gas line, except they would run it in cool areas of the car to help cool the fuel off before it went to the engine, and just stupid stuff like that.
A lot of the old NASCAR stuff. There's talks that they had like you were only allowed to have a 22-gallon fuel tank. So they'd make a 30-gallon fuel tank and inflate a beach ball or 2 or basketball or football inside the tank and then fill it up with gas. And they immediately go to tech. They would drain the entire tank dry without looking inside the tank. And they only got 22 gallons. And then whenever they go back to their pits, their fuel tank was already certified. They'd take the deflated balls out and they had a 30-gallon.
Yep. It's just the crazy stuff that you work around the rules to get your desired result.
The necessities of the mother of all invention. So when it comes to it kind of sucks with all the emission stuff, but maybe it's not as terrible as we were initially thinking. But
yeah, time's gonna tell. We're gonna find out.
Time will tell. Yeah, hopefully it just doesn't go too communist when it comes to a lot of the authoritarian takeover of everything.
I agree with you. I wholeheartedly agree with you. So I'm going to say on that note, we've probably had a pretty good episode this time between all the technical stuff and me freezing constantly. And we will try to make this a little bit more of a common theme for our listeners. It's mainly been me.
Myself, I need to work on some scheduling. A lot of stuff tends to come up last minute, and
you're preaching to the choir. Trust me, because a lot of this has been me trying to make time to do this. So I gotta get in the habit of getting this going and doing this more regularly. So trust me, I wholeheartedly understand. So all right, guys, thank you, and gals, thank you for listening to the if I could talk tonight, the Twisted Builds podcast, and thanks for having us, and have a good one. Bye.
Thank you.